Welcome to Soft Bites Podcast. Your life, your dentistry. We talk about ways to have more fun and meaning in one of the coolest and most rewarding professions in medicine. Conversations on how to bring awareness, create a healthy workplace, and provide emotional insights to make dentistry a fulfilling activity while making space for one's wonder, creativity, and freedom. Here are your hosts, Manuela and George Andre.
Hello everyone. Hello Andre, how are you?
Hi, Manuela. Nice to see you again. I was missing you already because it's been a long time since we record.
True,
How are
true.
you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. It's been uh I had very busy weeks. Um and I had COVID in the in the meantime, but
That's quite
everything
common.
is well. And I was missing
Good.
you too and missing our conversations here. I'm happy to be back.
My weekly therapy.
Yeah. So
It's
today
cheap therapy.
uh, today we are going to talk about working in dentistry without being a dentist, and I think this is an interesting theme to come after the last conversation that we had with Alok, because he's the perfect
Yes.
example of that. If you didn't heard our conversation with Alok, please go back and hear. It's episode 2 of the second season. And I we thought that would be good for us to talk about this, to talk about how nowadays dentists are not only uh, limited to the dentistry work, to the hard dentistry work in the mouth of the patient, in the chair. Alok is an example of that. I'm also an
You are an
example of
example of
that.
that.
But the fact is that I finished dentistry, my degree in dentistry 20 years ago, and I think that
Mhm.
20 years ago something like this was it was not possible. I mean, if you are a dentist, you have to work in the chair, in the mouth of the patient. And that was, even if you had a practice of your own clinic, and you have to manage the practice and manage the staff, and you have to be the accountant, and to do all the things that mean having your own practice, that sometimes dentists do that all by themselves, all alone. Your
Mhm.
main job, it would be working,
Clinical dentistry.
yeah, in clinical dentistry. And I think that in the last 20 years, we've come a long way with that. I think we are getting more open to new scenarios, and it's getting more well accepted. And because I think sometimes we limit ourselves. We talked about this with Alok in the podcast, in the conversation with him, that due to we have the very demanding technical part in dentistry. So sometimes we are the ones that are limiting ourselves. But I think things are changing, and you are also an example of that, right? You don't limit yourself to the clinical work only.
Yeah. Yeah. I do clinical work. I would say I will do maybe. I would say at this point in time, maybe 60% clinical work, 40% teaching, and also dedicate uh, not a large portion of the time, but I dedicate myself a little bit to an app that I developed, which is called Make Meekly, which is related to dentistry. So yes, in that sense, I could manage not to work so much in the mouth of the patient or directly with patients. But yeah, but I've diversified a little bit. But I think that you are a much better example than me. So I think it would be good for the listeners to know your story. So I think you've talked about this, but I think it would be nice for them to hear exactly what exactly crossed your mind. What were the triggers that led you to stop clinical dentistry? How was that possible? Was it something that was planned? Was it something that did the transition time took too long? Were you never afraid of the transition? So how was that?
Well,
All the difficult questions,
I, fear is always present. Still nowadays, it's like I just have to,
which is
you
good,
have to
which
to
is
to deal
good.
with it. But yeah, fear was definitely part of a big part of the process. Um, uh,
But when did it started? When? So yeah, you worked in Portugal, then you went to work
Yeah,
in
I worked in
in
Portugal until
Belgium.
2014, and then in 2014, September of 2014, I went to work to Belgium as a dentist. And when I went to Belgium, I already had a mindfulness practice of my own, a meditation and the mindfulness practice of my own.
On a personal level only.
Yeah, on a
On a personal
personal
level.
level only, because it was my tool to be able to deal with the stress of the job. So
Yeah.
I I usually say this. I mean, I teach mindfulness based stress reduction to dentists because I've been there. So I'm the
Yeah.
perfect example of using
Yeah.
these tools to be able to better deal with the stress
Yeah.
of the profession. We already talked about this. You cannot have
Yeah.
a stress-free dentistry practice, but you can eliminate certain part of the stress, because part of the stress is your
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, and
Mm-hmm.
you have the responsibility to eliminate part of it.
Mm.
But there is part of it that you cannot eliminate, and you have to learn to deal with it. And for me, uh, when I realized that I was causing that I was hurting myself, that I was damaging my health, that I could not find a balance in my life, even in a personal level, due to the fact that I used to work 6 days a week. I mean, 7 days if you count, because I worked clinical work 6 days a week, and then if you work 6 days a week, you have to have time to do the extra work that you have to do. So, and I was not able to disconnect, and so that had a huge impact in my life. But I was able to have some have some self awareness, and to be able to stop, and also to develop this tools. And I started to learn. I started to do courses, but only to a personal level, as a stress reduction tool to myself. And with that, I was able to bring some intentional action to to my life, and to my dentistry practice, to my dentistry career. And that intentional action led me to Belgium, for example. So I realized that I could not work the way that I wanted in Portugal. For example, I didn't want to work on weekends. And yeah, and in the practice that I worked, I was asked to work on weekends. and
Okay.
um, and I was practicing a dentistry that was not going according to my values.
Okay.
And so I decided to go to Belgium. So when I went, I already had this a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice, and this already started to develop some self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Belgium, they already teach mindfulness to dentists. There are already 8 weeks courses for stress reduction in Belgium
Okay.
for dentists. There are 1 day workshops that are mindfulness in the dental clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it very interesting, and I went to one of the workshops, and because I already had a mindfulness practice, in the end, I stayed to talk with the person that gave the
The
course,
talk.
and it was a very interesting conversation because I said to him the reasons why I went to Belgium, what I was trying to bring to my dentistry practice, that I was trying to, to find my balance, to find me
Yeah.
in the dentistry. And he said to me, okay, it's what you are saying to me, it's usually what dentists say to me, but when they are 60, so you are still not 40, so you have there's still hope for you. It's still not too late. And then he said, but look, if you already have your practice, and if you are making all these questions, and in the field of dentistry, why don't you go a little bit deeper and see how these two worlds can join? And that's what I
Yeah.
started to do. I started to read, to investigate, and then I applied for the mindfulness based stress reduction teachers course. I got in. I did the 2 years of certification, and then I started immediately to organize courses for dentists. So I only worked on the mindfulness field with dentists.
So,
What?
but sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but it was not an abrupt transition. So you kept working as a dentist because, of course, I think this is very important for people to understand. I mean, you don't switch like this because you have financial obligations, right? I mean, you do it after work. You do it. You construct a side hustle, a side job, but you maintain your main job, right? And when was that transition? How was that transition? How long did it take? When did you realize it was financially okay? Because that's important for you. So how
Mhm.
was that?
The transition took almost 2 years from
Hmm.
the time that I
The first course.
yeah, from the time the first course until I was able to stop my clinical practice. And in those 2 years, of course, there was the process that you talked about. So to make sure that it was financially um, uh,
Okay.
reliable, that I could live on it, that it was something that I was building with a solid structure. But
Hmm.
there was also the work on me, on myself, on my mindset, because I remember thinking, um, okay, I'm going to stop working. See, no, I'm not going to stop working. I'm going to continue to work. I'm going to stop my clinical work, but I'm going
Yes.
to continue to
Dentists,
work.
they feel so guilty about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's it.
That sense of guilt.
Yeah. That's it. It's a sense of guilt. It's a sense of not knowing how others are going to see you. It's a sense of, yeah, am I going to be less of a dentist? Less what they
Yeah.
are going to think about me. So you really have to be really sure of what you are doing, really confident that this is the right path for you to be able to
But
handle all those emotions.
did it felt right? Did it felt lighter? Did it felt happier? Did you feel more connection while you were teaching mindfulness than you were with clinical work? I mean, what was the feeling? Because that's something important. You have to be aware. How do I feel doing this versus how do I feel doing that?
Uh, the your all your certainty comes from that. At least for me, it
Yeah,
worked
the
like that.
feeling.
Yeah. comes from that
Yeah, you have
feeling.
to have, there's something, yeah.
Yeah, comes from that feeling that I was in the right path. I'm finally in the right path. I felt,
I
and I
understand.
still feel, that I'm serving dentistry better now than when I
I
was
understand. I
in
understand.
in my clinical work. When I
It's
was in my
interesting because
clinical work,
I have the same feeling. Yeah, it's
uh,
very interesting. Yeah,
I never thought about publishing articles. I know that you had that since from the beginning. You wanted
yeah,
to publish
yeah.
work, and I never thought about that when I was in my clinical work. And now I already have two articles published. I'm working on research, and I do it in an effortless way. It
I
doesn't
completely
require
understand.
effort.
Yeah,
It's like I have this
it's in the
flow
flow.
state
You
in.
work in the
Yeah,
flow.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that's it.
that's very
So
interesting.
that keeps you motivated to endure all the other part that we were talking
Now,
about, all the fear.
let me ask you a question, and you don't have to answer this because this is about it's a question about money, because everybody is afraid when they think about quitting dentistry because there's usually some decent money involved, and in a country like Belgium I think there's better, it's like what you make uh, per hour, and you don't need to work like weekends and late hours like you did in Portugal. I think you were financially doing dentistry very good, right? Doing clinical dentistry in Belgium, you were financially stable, right? So there's also that fear, of course, that financially, um, how was it for you? Was it important in a way that, okay, I'm only gonna quit clinical dentistry when I feel I can make the same amount of money, or I will quit clinical dentistry as soon as possible as long as I do some amount of money that I'm happy with? You understand? I mean,
Yeah,
do I
yeah.
have to earn the same, or do I feel happy with even less than this? But I'm happier, so it's worth it. How is it for you?
Well, the first
You are
hypothesis
winning more. You are
you
winning
just
more,
no
actually.
the
No,
first
I'm
hypothesis
joking.
that you just said, I quickly realized that was impossible to make the same money, at least in the beginning. No one knew me. What I was doing was
Oh, yes,
completely
of course.
new. So
Yes,
I
it still is.
yeah, yeah, it still is. It's completely impossible. But what I also realized, it had a huge potential. What I was doing, that it required
Hmm.
a lot of work, but I was not
Hmm.
afraid of it, and I
Of
was
that.
enjoying it. I always knew the next steps that I had to take, and it
Hmm.
felt like I told you, it felt very effortless. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it was something that I really enjoyed, and I realized, and that's why it took 2 years. I realized that I needed to have a certain amount of money, of course, to feel secure. For the first times, to be able, earning much less, but to be able to, okay,
Sustain
so that
yourself.
money was not my drive. That money
Yes,
was not,
I understand.
because money is always a drive, and
Of
it's a good
course.
thing, but for me
Of
not to
course.
be worry about it, to not be
Yes. Yes,
a
I completely understand about that.
you know
Yeah. So
also.
as long as you feel comfortable with that, you're fine. So what you're telling me is that you didn't wait to make the same amount of money because it was almost impossible in the first years. You just waited until the amount of money that you were getting from your side, from your parallel work, could make you feel comfortable
Yeah,
and sustain yourself,
yeah,
right?
that's
And then
it.
because you felt so happy, you knew that there was potential, and you had that intuition that things were going to work
Hmm.
out
Yeah.
because you weren't afraid, because you loved what you were doing, basically.
Yeah, that's it. And I also have to say, because I think this is very important, because sometimes I speak with certain colleagues that have this desire or this wish also to stop clinical work and to do something else. but they don't have the support. So I also had uh, someone supporting me, someone saying to me, don't worry, you know what you are doing, I'm here for you if things go wrong. Okay, because when you have someone next to you that says, hey, okay, I understand, but take care because there's bills to pay. you know Stop playing around and go to the practice to work. It's then
It's
it's
more
ve-
scary. I
it's
understand. I
very
understand.
scary.
And I
Yeah.
think what you said in terms of the support, it's not only like the logistical support. Okay, you have a place here that you can stay. You're not gonna. You're always gonna have food and the shelter. So I'm here to take care of you. That's one thing. But there's also the emotional support. Which is okay. Go ahead. Okay, just if that's what you want, okay, just go ahead. And it's true what you say, because I think that you can never do things alone, whether it's your family, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friends. Yes, I don't think you can do. You can never take these risks alone. I mean, some people do take them alone, but I think it's much harder, and I think it's a much more lonely road. It's a much more lonely road. But another thing that I like to touch is, there's something that today, whether we like it or not, whenever we think about doing something outside dentistry, being a dentist, but stop doing clinical dentistry and do something else, or just start from scratch, which is, the internet changed things, right? If it wasn't
For
for the
me, it
internet,
was.
what you are doing
Yeah.
10 years ago, you couldn't do this.
Yeah, I
I would
could do
say
it, but
20 years ago, you
in
could.
a much more local way.
Yes,
uh, I
yes.
I I have to say
Not
that.
scalable, not
Yeah.
scalable. It would not be scalable.
Yeah. For me, the internet was very important because it allowed me. And um, and then in COVID times, much more. It allowed me I mean, to reach colleagues from all over the world. I remember during COVID, and still now. I just got 2 days ago a message from a colleague from Canada that inscribed herself to do the course with me, and we are trying to schedule our time zones to see when we can start meeting. Uh, so it's for me, it was very important, and gave me this huge opportunity that I could not have without it. And I think for dentistry also it's changed a lot. Even this that we are doing, right, the
Yes,
podcast here.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's
There's a lot of opportunities that were opened with the internet,
mhm,
and I think that if people that are listening to us, they say, okay, because I know some people that, for example, let me give you some examples. I was doing a course with Jazz Gulati,
mhm,
Jazz.
mhm,
Jazz Gulati, they came with a course of people from the UK to Porto to do a course with me. And one of the girls that was sat in front of me in the dinner, she was telling me, "Oh, so how could you do it? I mean, you're such a good clinical dentist. How was that possible? How do you teach?" Because I want to do something different in dentistry. She said, I'm not very good for clinical dentistry. I mean, I do some things, but I just the money is good, it's comfortable, but I think I want to do something else. And Jazz was next to me, and like 30 seconds ago, Jazz was telling that he was looking for someone to help him in his um, in his podcast.
mhm, mhm,
And he was even telling that while he was searching for, he basically was telling the story that he was searching for someone, and basically the person that ended up working with him to prepare the videos, to do some of the marketing, was her background was she was a dentist, and she quit dentistry and she started to work for Jazz. And I was like, well, so wait, Jazz, do you need a second one to do these things? And he was talking to her. Okay, so you have to pitch me. And he said, so make an intro for my podcast. I'm going to interview this guy. Make an intro. And she was like, okay, next episode is this and this. So it was very funny because internet has allowed so much opportunities now for dentists. So if you don't like clinical dentistry, my advice would be, and of course we are all very very different. Okay, maybe you want to open a bar in Nicaragua near the beach. Maybe you want to buy some properties and rent and do some Airbnbs if you have the money for that. That's more of a generic thing. But if you want to do something connected to dentistry, in my opinion, it has to involve something that it has to involve either with social media or online education or online broadcasting or whatever, because that's the thing that you can scale the most, even if you are an individual. I mean, let's say if you go really, really full power on the YouTube channel regarding whatever in dentistry, in your case, mindfulness, or it could be management, or it could be ergonomics. I don't know. There are so many niches that if you really, really want to go deep, you can go. And the good thing with the internet is that you can have that side hustle while you are still working as a clinical dentistry and then see the opportunities that go from them. So I would think that if you want to reduce your clinical dentistry and you want to do something else, my advice would be, okay, think about something that you like and how can that involve either social media or the internet. It could be online education eventually. It can be, I don't know, there are just so many different niches. For example, management. And we've
Yeah.
talked in some of the episodes.
Hmm.
I think there are so many practice owners that would pay very good money with decent working times if a dentist was doing management, because a dentist with some notions of management, with some course in management and administration, can be extremely helpful for a busy practice and don't work as a clinical dentist because he understands the difficulties. And I think this is something. I think it was you that said it in the podcast. If you like management, if you like to be in the back of the theater, let's say it, if you like to if you like to organize, but you are not very good in contact with the patient, or you're not very good with your hands, you don't like the work. I would take very seriously the opportunity of working as a manager in a practice, because I'm sure that there are many people who would pay good money for that if you can really bring some value to that. So I think the opportunities are just immense. I mean, you can do so many things related to dentistry that that sometimes we limit ourselves. Like you were saying, I think that Alok was telling us exactly that. Is that we tend not to believe ourselves too much, which is something that you obviously did. I mean, you realized there was potential and you realized that you want to go that way and you went that way, and I think this is very inspiring, and it's because in the beginning everything is very difficult, all the decisions are very difficult, but if you have a plan and if you have some sort of support, okay, I think it's very very
Hmm.
interesting. Okay, let me see
It's
if
very interesting, I have to say to you, because I had some close friends that know me since the course. So colleagues that we did the dentistry university together. And when they knew that I was taking this path, I had some reactions. Yeah, you always said it, that you were not going to do this. The Yeah, and it's true. I was trying, but I didn't know how. I remember being in Portugal working, and to think, oh my God, what else? But I don't know what I don't
can I
know how to
do?
do
What else can I do?
anything else. So I
There's
have to do
something
it. I
more.
have to do it.
Yeah.
And
But
it
you know
was
what? I think that feeling in dentists it's much more common
yeah,
than
yeah.
what they are willing to say.
Yeah, that's one of the things that
Because
I
yeah,
talk about in my mindfulness course. It's that the power of choice, us realizing that we have choices. Because
yeah,
I remember when I thought this in my head, I have to do this because I don't know how to do anything else. Again, I was limiting myself.
yes, of
Um,
course.
but I didn't realize of all these choices that we are now talking. what changed for me was that I started to be more, again, self awareness changed everything.
Is important.
And I
Yes.
started to be more aware of the opportunities, and when this opportunity came to join these
Same.
two worlds of dentistry and mindfulness, that was two things that I
Mhm.
enjoyed and two things that I knew I could bring something new, is uh, I immediately, okay, this is it, because I was looking for something, so I started to be more aware and focused to what are my choices. So I started to open myself to those possibilities. um, but I was telling you about the reaction of colleagues. So I had that reaction, but I also had the opposite, because when you have these thoughts that, okay, I would like, but I cannot. And then you see someone that actually does it, you
Did
know,
it?
then you are faced with, she did it, so this is possible.
Yeah.
And I had some bad reactions also. I had some, yeah, I had bad reactions.
Of
Sometimes it's
course.
not easy to be faced with something that you realize that you can actually do if you are
Do. Yes.
willing to make some uncomfortable choices, because these
Yeah.
choices, they are not comfortable, that's it. So you realize you have them, but then sometimes it's easier to get in to stay in the comfort zone, if even if the comfort zone is not that comfortable, but it's
Yeah.
what you are used to.
Yes.
So in the beginning, all of these choices, so those 2 years that I was telling you that it took me to stop the clinical work, it was two not so easy years, where I had to deal with several things. I had the support, just like I told you, but the fear was real, right? But we learned to the fear is always going to be here, right? So it's we have to learn to deal with the fear, and also to believe in ourselves and to believe in our choices, and that comes from having fun with what you are doing, seeing the results also of what you are doing. Something for me
Hmm.
that was very
You
important
gain
was to
confidence. You
the
gain
results that
confidence.
I
Yeah.
was having, the feedback that I was having, the positive
Hmm.
feedback that I was seeing, and that on there's dentists when after the course. So I started to have very positive results with what I was doing. Uh, but you have to be willing to see those choices, because sometimes it's we block also those choices because we know that they are not easy choices. You have to be able to deal with some uncomfortable uh, um, pasts.
Um, and like I was telling you, the feeling that I had, I was just reading here some notes, is that um, I think that really I come across a lot of dentists that would like to do something else. That's the feeling that I have. There are several reasons for that. Um, of course, dentistry is very limiting. I mean, if you take a course of medicine, even today I was talking to someone and she said, well, my daughter, my daughter, she's a doctor. She's studying medicine, she's finishing medicine, and she's thinking about, and I was like, well, that's good because medicine is it's very broad. You can do a lot you can go for research, you can go for public health, you can go for all the specialties, all the clinical specialties, you can go for management. And her daughter, she was interested in management in medicine, which is very interesting, and she was interested in that. And that was today. And also today, I was giving the lecture. I was talking some important things about initial examination, and there was a kid that was she was like out of the school, says, "Well, I live in this city. My fathers have a practice. It works very well. I'm not, but I think it could work better. Um, can I go to your practice and see how you work?" And to see, I said, "Well, okay, and you can even go to the management course and see." And I was like, I asked her, "So what would you like to do?" And she says, "Well, if I couldn't do clinical dentistry, I would prefer to." So she enjoys management, and because she understands the profession, and I think it's very, and I think this is much more common that what dentists would like to admit. Um, One of the reasons because it's very limiting. The other reason, which is also important, which is a more dramatic reason, is because the financial opportunities in dentistry are reducing because there's an excess of dentists. It's getting there's I think there is get it's getting an excess of dentists almost all over Europe. Maybe in the US it's not like this because it's more controlled, but in Europe there's an increasing number of dentists, especially foreign dentists. Um, and I think there's also a little bit of disappointment with the profession, and we talked about this many times of the fact it's getting very marketing orientated, and some people don't like that much. And there's this layer of selling in private practice that also some people don't like. That some people go to dentists because that they like medicine and the medical profession, and when they go to dentist they see a whole new layer of private practice, of management, and of marketing and sales, which doesn't fit for them. Some other people it fits, but for some other it doesn't. And we talked about this many times. I think there's a discomfort in dentists for many reasons, and I think that some of them feel trapped in dentistry because, like we were saying, in medicine you can always go for another route, or it's easy to go for another route. In dentist, that's what you do. And if you have a practice, you can sometimes step back and do only the management. But if you don't have a practice, then you are more limited. And yes, you need to be braver. Yeah. You need to be braver in the steps that you take. And for example, Alok, he sold his practice and he went to a completely different route, which is like the marketing, the digital marketing in dentistry, which is still a very unpopulated field. I mean, if you like marketing, I think that's also a very good idea because there's so many opportunities in dentistry for marketing, for digital marketing. In my case, make me clear, the way that it happened was actually basically I was scratching my own itch. I think we talked about this and we had a podcast about make me clear, but just to give some notes on how it arose and how it became a business. um, I knew that I wanted to create something that would make a fancy document and a clear and transparent, that would avoid a lot of misunderstanding when you give more comprehensive when you give a treatment plan of more comprehensive dentists. But even if it's not comprehensive, I mean, if the patient is going to spend sometimes hundreds or thousands of dollars or euros in dentistry, I mean, it's good. It's good that you present something that explains what you're going to do, what's going to happen, the stages of treatment, informed consents, costs, warranties, treatment policies, maintenance policies. I think all that is important. And if you can do it like in an elegant way, it would, I would scratch my own itch because I didn't feel comfortable doing treatment plans that were expensive without presenting something that was up to that standards, which I believe, which is a transparent communication in dentistry.
And
So it
how
was,
many
I would
languages do you have? Make me clear now.
now we have Portuguese, English, German, French, Russian, Spanish, and now we are going for, there's a guy doing the Romanian translation. Yeah. And it's if you ask me, could I stop working and dedicate myself to make me clear with the money that it makes now? I could. I would not have like a very uh, comfortable living, but I could perfectly live within my standards and take the. I could have the same lifestyle that I have today, but for me being a dentist and for me giving courses internationally is also an advantage for selling more the subscription for Make Me Clear. So it's one side that feeds the other. I would say one side that feeds the other. So could I stop completely clinical dentistry as well? I could stop, but I also want to do some clinical dentistry because I teach and I still want to document the case that I want, and I also want to get my hands dirty to realize exactly the things that can go wrong, so that I can eventually teach and even have these brainstorms in the podcast. So um, I stopped not I stopped, but I reduced clinical dentistry. I do a lot of teaching. Um, but I think what gave me the biggest peace of mind in terms of this transition was the fact that I could delegate a lot of stuff and I could do it at a distance. I mean, I could be at home in my computer and understand what was going on, and through emails solve a lot of stuff. So I don't think that, for me, for example, if I go to one place, if I go for a month to Latin America, I don't for me, I can eventually work a few days during the week on the computer, a few hours. I have no issue with that because some people want to see vacations as something black and white, which is okay. No, or, oh, if I go on a vacation, I don't want to open the computer. I'm not like that. Or sometimes for a week or so, I can be like that. But for most of the time, if I work like half an hour a day to see how things are going on, it doesn't affect me, and I like that. And for me, for my personality, makes me more balanced. Okay, so I think that you have to understand exactly, and the path of each person is completely different. For example, yes, I like to teach, and then I developed the app, which is something that I think it's interesting. And regarding apps, there's a lot of opportunities still because most dentists, they are not happy with all the softwares that they use. They always think, oh, if there was some app that could do this, or if there was some app that could do that. I mean, there's it's interesting because sometimes what happens is like, okay, I had this idea for an app like 10 years ago, but I thought it wouldn't work. Now you can see this app that is really, really working. um, um, it happens with a lot of stuff. So I think you have to, if you really believe in something, if you think it might work, I think you should give it a try. Um, and I think that you should be brave, but at the same time have take some calculated risks, of
Hmm.
course.
Hmm. Um,
If you take some calculated risks, I think that you can really achieve, or at least start in the path of doing something parallel. And another thing that I think is also important, which is like you get your mindset outside of the clinical dentist, which is also a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to stop doing this for one day, and for one day I'm going to think about something else, and that could be something even completely outside dentistry. But even that mental shift, I think, is healthy. Even only the shift itself, I think it's healthy.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's a very important thing for dentists, is that they practice that shift that you are saying, and this doesn't mean that they will do something completely outside dentistry, or that has nothing to do
Okay,
with
yeah,
dentistry. That might happen, but the thing is that there are a lot of opportunities inside dentistry, in the dentistry
inside
field.
dentistry.
But for you
Yeah,
to be able to stretch your mind, and for you to be able to
yeah,
see it, you also have to, sometimes you have to take a step back from
yeah.
out of it, and then it's easier for you to see the opportunities. But before we continue on that, I just make a few notes on what you are saying, because I think this is important, and we also already talked about this, but I think this is super important and related to what you were saying. You were able to do all of that you were saying, so to develop Make Me Clear, to, if you want to go to South America 1 month vacation, you could, and you still work from there, and things are running because you were able to delegate. You already talked about this on
Yes.
other episodes of the podcast, and you were able to structure your practice, not to be the rock star. You say that this lots of times, that this is true. So that everyone is a rock star at your practice. The practice doesn't need you to
We
run
try.
in a smooth way, and you completely were able to implement a system that works, um, and you trust it. You trust your staff trusts you, and that allows you to have the freedom to develop other
Yeah,
things, and to also to teach. Now, you said it in the beginning, a big part of your time is also teaching, is something
yeah,
that you enjoy much doing, and also the freedom to travel and to make several poses during the year. That's something
yeah,
that you like to do, and that gives you also the opportunity to take that step back and to shift the mindset, to other things. It's very very important that the ones that are listening to us realize that that didn't happen to you. You just woke up one day and you said, "Ah, okay, now I'm going to South America one
no,
month and everything will run smooth." No, you had a lot of work
yeah.
preparing things and develop things for that to happen.
Yeah, it was not only one thing, it was a lot. But it's funny to hear you talk about me this way. So you did this and then you did this. Because looking back a few years ago, that's what I would like to. And if you told me, look, there's this guy is doing this and this and this and this, and he could delegate and he could take 2 months vacations per year, I wouldn't believe that. In the first 5 years, I said, this is impossible to do. This is, I could never have that sort of lifestyle. But I think that was, and it happened like 2 years ago, something, 2, 3 years ago. I look at it and I said, well, this is exactly what I want to do at this point in time. But you touched some very important thing, which is delegation. And for me, I think this is the basic principle of everything. When we talk about clinical practice, and of course, and we talk a lot about this in the course, and we've talked a lot about this in the podcast. You have to have a system. I mean, that's if you don't have a system in dentistry, in your practice, you are really really um, completely governed by luck.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, will things will go
Hmm.
wrong? There will
Hmm.
be a lot of
Yeah.
drama, and it's just chaotic,
Hmm.
and we know that.
You are
We
going
know
to
that if
be
things are
living life
not
by default, just
completely,
reacting
and
whatever throws at
because
you.
dentistry and a dental
Yeah.
team, a dental team that is not organized, a dental place that is not organized. A few years ago, dentistry, you would open, like decades ago, you would open a clinical practice and people and patients would rain inside, right? It's not like that anymore. So there's people that they just don't just knock on your door. You have to, in private practice, you really have to be good, be organized, because there's someone down the road that is more organized than you, that basically does what they promise, and you're screwed. So I think this is, if you can organize a dental team to be 80% of what you think is perfect, I think you are very, very, very well ahead of most people, and I think you are in the right direction. So having a system is really important, and we talked about the importance of everything written down, regular meetings, and have values well defined, and that needs to be done. You need to take time for that. You need to take 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or go maybe to India for 1 month and write everything. You need to do that, because the what that leverages your practice financially and in terms of organization, and how you can withdraw yourself, is exponential. So there's no, this is the biggest, I would not, it's not a secret because everybody knows it works this way. But when you talk to dentists, most of them, they don't really grasp the idea, because they have to do the work. They have to do the work. They have to stop and write down and do meetings. And it's easier if you start from scratch. It's more difficult if you want to change in the middle of after 10 years, because um, there's a lot of already things that are established both emotionally, both between persons, small habits that are difficult to cut. So it's more difficult, but it's still possible. And you have to do it because otherwise, the later you do it, the worse. So that is for clinical practice, for a team. It's very difficult. Now, what we also did, me and my team, for teaching, we use the same systems. We use the same principles. We have developed systems so that things run smoothly. So my main course that we give 2 times a year is me and two or three more colleagues. No, actually, four more colleagues. And one of the girls, she basically does a lot of the management. We try to pay her what is fair. She's a dentist and she does a lot of the management and communication with the students. So we delegated a lot. We still delegate a lot, and I still delegate a lot whenever I do a course. Of course, that if you are invited to do something international, to give a course. For example, I'm going to go to India for 1 week to give a course. But my level of stress is really, really low. Why? Because I've been doing this almost every month for, I would say, 4, 5, or 6 years. That the presentations are just being updated and updated and updated. And I have all the protocols. For example, in teaching, we have all the protocols for cementation, all the protocols for preparation. And everything is written down and it's just updated. So everything becomes easier. So the level of stress when I'm going to give a course, I just want to, what am I going to talk today? Because everything that I have in my computer is updated. Everything that my colleagues have, it's updated. So we have the protocols for everything. We have the slides for everything. So it's not dependent on how I feel in that day. So the way that we give the class of preparation of veneers, it's always the same way. It's always the same way. And some people may say, well, but isn't it boring for you? No, it gives me freedom to work and then stop. Work and then stop. Because otherwise, if I don't update my classes as I get questions from students, if I don't go at night and if I have to spend a lot of hours before the presentation to be updating, I mean, it's not worth it. So you have to have a system that your classes are easily updated, and then you can manage things that you don't want to carry. For example, we started me, Paulo, and Rui. Now we have me, Paulo, Rui, and Joana. Now it's me, Paulo, Rui, Joana, and Kevin. And we try to delegate as much as possible because we know that without the help of them, we could not maintain the same standard. So it's the same principle of systems, the same principles. We also want to transform our course to an online course, for example. We want to transform it online. But the problem, and let me just give you a small hint about the way that I think. So what's the issue with online education? Most people, they record a course, 1 hour class, and they videotape themselves and the slides with screen flow or something like that. Okay, it looks nice, but there's an issue there, because in 6 months there's a new article that says something different than what you just said. So you have to re-record the whole 1 hour, right? So it makes no sense. It's not scalable. It's not possible. So imagine that we have about 20 or more different themes of class that we give during the course. So what we realize is that we have to do it something like this. We have to record bits of 10 minutes maximum for each subject, and use an online learning portal like LearnWorld, for example, or something like that, that automates the billings and the payments, etc. And let's, for example, say that I'm giving a class about treatment planning and about aesthetic planning. And that has like 10 or 20 small bits of 10 minutes. If there's something that changes, I just go there and I change that 10 minutes. You understand? And also, we never appear on the videos, because if we do appear, And if you start to edit in the long different face and with different clothes. So this is just a typical example on how you have to think strategically on what you are doing so it can minimize the effort that you are about to deliver to the project. So that's the way that we think about online education. Yes, we have to make something good, a blended education, and we also give some tooth models for the students to prepare at home. We'll give them some material, but you have to think how scalable is it in the long term. Because what I see, for example, a class of 1 hour with someone talking that they videotape themselves in 6 months, it might be outdated. So you have to think about all these things. Okay. Now, for lasting, make me clear. Make me clear is a different story. It's a different thing because um, there's usually that thing. Okay, that the thing of the passive income. There's like this dream of passive income. That people say, well, you should be making money while you are asleep. Of course, it's true, but it gives a lot of work to prepare that. Of course, if you develop an app, the app itself it's self-sustainable because it's automatic. The login is automatic. The payments it's automatic. The marketing emails, everything is automatized, right? So this is like the highest possible layer of automation. So yes, in clinical practice is very rough. You have to sit down and write everything and manage people and inspire people. Then teaching is a little bit less stressing, but you still have to think about delegation. And the app is something that you just have to update it, but it's self-regulating and self-managed. So the app in itself is self-managed. And this is why I think that apps in dentistry are still very underdeveloped. And if you don't need to code to develop an app, you just need to have an idea, write down that idea, believe, try to write down even in a paper how would it work, what would be the sequence, this would do this would do that, exactly how that would work, and then talk to a coder and see if you are willing to invest to develop that. So, but the thing that behind all these three projects, there's the systems mindset is always present. If you don't have a systems mindset, and I'm sure in your work in mindfulness, when you do a lot of online training and stuff like that, you understand what. So you have to have protocols. You have to have working sheets that you know exactly what you are going to talk in that class, and you know exactly. You have to have that
Hmm.
certainty, that predictability,
Yeah.
because if you go to a class and try to freestyle,
No, no,
you're screwed basically. Yeah.
no.
So what
Oh,
you were
it
saying,
works.
that
It works
delegation
here
in the
on the
systems.
podcast, but it doesn't work.
Yes, but that's yes. You can't freestyle. You can't freestyle the especially the face-to-face courses that you do on or the one-on-one coaching that you do. I mean, you have to be prepared. You have to take notes and stuff like that. And it seems something very obvious, but not many people are willing to sit down um, in a focused time and write down things, how their practice works, how the course would be, how the app would look like, how the even if you have a coffee, even if you have like a bar, even if you have like a restaurant, if you want to open a shop of jewelry or whatever, you have to have that systems mindset. You have to be able to delegate, because I think this is the basic idea of any business, and if, without that notions, I don't think you can really take advantage of the work that you are doing, which is basically try to take some time off and have some time off to be creative and to work on yourself and to think about yourself and all of the things
There is
that
a
we want.
Sorry to interrupt you. There is a very interesting thing that I think you say on your, like, I think it was on the lecture, it was not on the podcast, that I heard you saying that nowadays you can find everything online, and this is true.
Yes,
So
yes,
if you have the will, and if you will look for it, I mean, I remember I didn't know anything about this online world. I watch YouTube
yeah.
tutorials on how to to grow an Instagram
Send
account,
emails.
and I took courses on online marketing. I did. I had to learn. I had to learn. When I said to myself back in the days, dentistry is the only thing I could do, that was true. So in order to do something else, to transform this something else in a business, I had to learn. First, I had to take the 2 year certification as a mindfulness teacher, and then I had to learn how to transform all of this in
Into a
a
sellable
business.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I yeah, but it's like you said, nowadays you can find everything online for free. And if you want to go
Yes.
deeper, if you want to have if you want to do, then you can take a course, and you can hire a coach, then you can whatever.
Yeah.
But it, it's like nowadays we have the information. It's very it's very out there. It's very easy to
Yeah.
get. And also I think that dentists are very skilled. I mean, they are
Yeah.
very intelligent, and they have to start believing in themselves also, like they have something to offer, and they
To
have
offer.
something more to bring.
Yeah.
So I think that's very very important. We just gave examples of several things that can be done, and there's a lot more that can be
One
done.
more. Yes. That
There's
we
a
can.
lot more that can
Yes.
be done.
Yes.
There's a
Yeah.
I mean, I know, for example, a case of someone that went to Holland to work as a
Hmm.
dentist through
Hmm.
a human resources company.
Yeah.
And nowadays
Yeah.
she works on that human resources company,
Hmm.
bringing dentists
Yeah.
to work on
Yeah.
Holland. There's a big niche there also. If you want to start looking, there's this new way of working and of hiring people based on the values of the clinic. So you can
Hmm.
specialize yourself on that, to know what kind of dentist is this person, what does he want, what do you want to achieve, what are these values. And then, okay, this clinic will be an option for you. So that's for example, that's
And I think
another
that
idea.
and I think this would be a good way to wrap this episode, which is, I mean, you can contact us. I mean, if you think that you would like to do something else, if you think that it is in dentistry or outside dentistry, I mean, we are not specialists in transitioning careers from dentistry to other careers, but I'm sure that we would love to listen to what are your struggles. I mean, do you know exactly what you want? Or maybe you don't even know exactly what you want, which is fine, right? I mean, I want to do something different, but I still don't know. Okay, so how can you search for that? I mean, what do you like? What would you like to do? And I think that we would be willing to have a chat with the person and look. I mean, there's this way, there's that way. I mean, you can stay in your country, you can eventually go abroad, and you can eventually develop something online, or you can do some sort of social media account about some niche in dentistry, and we would be happy to help you and to guide you, that which is basically, I think that deep down, people that want to make a change, they know the answer. I mean, they deep now, they know what they need to do, but sometimes they only need that little push. That's okay. I mean, just do this, keep your feet on the ground, and just try it, because even if it doesn't work out, it's always better than not trying, because if you don't try it, you'll always have that feeling that you haven't tried, and you that within a few years you feel frustrated that you still haven't tried. So I think that if you want to share with us, what you would like to do, we would be happy to
Yeah,
give our feedback. What do you think about that, Manuela?
that's a great idea, and that's a great suggestion. And and also it's worth, it's like you said, it's totally worth to explore. Because if you feel deep in yourself that you would like to try something else, um we can definitely listen, and you can definitely help. And if you don't do it, what can happen is what I said to you in the beginning, that that person that talked to me said. So you're going to reach your 60s, and you're going to look back and you said, oh my god, what have I done? Where did my life went?
Yeah.
um
Was I happy in my work?
yeah.
Did I contribute? Did I feel like I was at my best for doing a contribution? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's always worth a try. And I think it's, and we talked about this before about the great resignation that is happening in the US, which is nothing before like this we have seen about people quitting their jobs. And I was seeing some numbers, a few and I can even read you the numbers. There was an article that's very interesting. The article was saying what are the reasons for this great resignation, because to make this long story short, basically the pandemic gave time to people to reflect and to understand that they were not happy in their jobs, so they quit their jobs for other jobs, and sometimes to doing some to having like a more simple life, to minimize their expenditures and to live like a more simple life. But the reasons are here. So the major reason was that payment was too low. The second was no opportunities for advancement. The third was feeling disrespected at work. Uh, the other one was because of childcare issues, not enough flexibility to choose when to put in hours. That was also a major reason to quit the job. Benefits weren't good, wanted to relocate to a different area, or working too many hours. And so, yes, payment is at the top, but
It's not the
it's
only thing.
it's not isolated. It's divided with like 30% payment was too low, no opportunities for advancement, and feel disrespected at work. So it's very interesting to realize that the way that people treat you at work may be one of the biggest reasons why you leave your job. And so I think this gives us a hint that people are not just looking for money. And I think that the great resignation is exactly uh, a sign of that people understand there's something much more important than the money. And of course it's important because you have to have your comfort and you have to have your minimum standards that you believe, but it's not the most important thing. I think that being happy and being fulfilled and being respected at work, feeling that you are helping, feeling that you are contributing, I think it's one of the most important things.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, definitely, and that in the dentistry is a big thing because it's a
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
work. It's
yeah. Long
it's
hours,
hard. It's hard work. It's high performance. It's
repetitive.
yeah. And it can get exhausted in a physical way, in a mental way. So if you are doing it and if you feel deep in yourself that you don't like it, that you would like to do something else, then you really should look into that, and because you are going to feel the effects of that, um, in your health, in your mental health, in your physical health, but also, and I strongly believe in this, also your patients will feel that.
Yes,
You don't think
yes,
that your patients feel
yes. Of
that?
course, of course. I mean, if you are exhausted, if you are burnt, if you are drained, of course the patients feel that, and your emotional availability is not the same. You don't have the same positive talk. You don't have there are so many things that start to go wrong,
Hmm.
uh,
hmm And
because
there's
because
yeah, and there's
patients they
even
feel
a
they feel
study
the
that
energy.
relates that with patient safety. You know that you make more clinical mistakes.
Mistakes, of
Yeah.
course you do, of course you do. and
Uh,
and this is why you have to limit the clinical work to within safe limits in terms of working hours. I think this is really important. Yeah.
mhm. But it's something that sometimes dentists have a hard time
You
understanding
know better
that,
than me. You have a lot of students, and I'm sure that the feedback is it's you
understanding
have
that.
this struggle.
Yeah,
Yes,
they they
it's
they, they
difficult.
struggle. Yeah.
Yes,
But
to say no, it's difficult.
I loved your suggestion, and I think it's a beautiful way of us finishing this podcast. Of if someone
Yeah.
listening to us want to talk to us, Even if you don't know what you want to do or what you want to achieve. But if you want to
But if you
reach out,
just
we
think
would
that,
be happy.
if you just think that you have something deep inside you that says that you are maybe not going to do this, or you don't want to do this for the rest of your life. So what are the other opportunities around there? And we would like to know you and meet you and see what surrounds you and what is your what is your eventually hobbies and things that you get into. Because sometimes having someone outside to look and give some suggestions can sometimes
Hmm. Hmm.
open the horizons
Yeah, and
for some people.
this is an excellent idea. Maybe one day we can put this in practice, like creating like a network of
Yeah,
dentists, just
that
like
want
the
to
same
quit
thing that you
dentistry.
did with Jess and that colleague that was in front of you. Because
Yeah,
I'm looking for someone also, because for me.
you are.
Yeah, it's been, well, me by myself. I have now someone already working, but only on part time. And in order to grow, I reach my my maximum now. Now, in order to grow, I need to start building a team, and I need to start delegating. Otherwise, I cannot
But do you
cannot do
need?
more.
Does that
So
person needs to be a dentist? Probably not.
no, that person does not need to be a dentist. But if some dentist is looking for something, this is a great
And he's
idea
willing, and he is also willing to work, also willing to do the hard work, because like everything,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you have to
yeah.
work. Yeah.
But that's
Because it's
implicit in everything. You need to work
online
hard.
work. Online work is not. It's not. I mean, it may
It's
be
not as
more
easy as
comfortable
people think. Yeah,
as it people think, of course, because
no.
you have to have a lot of self discipline to sit down and write things and keep schedules and stuff like that. So yes, I think that's a great idea that we could eventually try to listen to some of the people that listen to the podcast and go from there. Maybe give some suggestions. Maybe present some persons.
Okay,
That would be a nice thing.
okay. So if you want to reach out, if you want to talk to us, just send us a message or an email. We'll love to hear from you. And
Yeah.
thank you, Andre. It was really really nice to get back to our conversations.
Yes. Okay, so thank you again, Manuela, for this second season. Some new things that we will cover, and some guests that we will have, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in the end of this year, when are the dates of of the course now? The
In October, 6, 7, and 8 of October.
6th, 7th, and 8th of October, south of Portugal. And I think we'll have, again, we'll have a blast. And this is the second edition. And I think it's
Let
going to be
me
great.
let me check to make sure that I'm not giving the wrong. No, it's right. 6, 7, and 8 of October. I'm right. Okay, I was
Perfect.
just checking in Sagres again, in that beautiful place. And we are going to talk about a lot of these things that we also talked about
Yeah.
here today, the systems, how to put a system in place, how to develop all this skills,
Yeah.
these human skills, like self-awareness, that I told in the beginning. For me, it was a game changer in my life and in my profession. I think it's very important. Emotional intelligence also, for
Yeah.
dentists. I think it's very important for them to live their job in a more healthy way. Um, so if you want to join us,
And
just
sometimes even for people just to think about it, just to have a few days where they can relax and think about
yeah.
exactly what they want in dentistry and hear from other colleagues, see how other colleagues are struggling, and then start a reflection on what you would like to do
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
your dentistry.
Do you think, let me just make you this question, just to finish. Do you think dentists miss reflection? They are missing reflection. They should
Of
reflect
course,
more.
I think everybody, but dentists they are a special. a special species. I always say that it's not because I am a dentist and I'm within the profession, but this is a high performing profession, and this is the demanding. It takes its toll on you physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and you have to protect yourself, and you have to like you said, be self aware, know exact, know, try to know as much as possible of what who you are and what makes you happy, and then go from there, and just realize that life is too short and you have to take the most out of it.
Hmm.
And if you can bring along other people in a positive way, I think it's even better. So we all have a lot of work to do. I mean, we all are a work in progress, and I think that this thing that we've been doing with the podcast and with the courses, I think I always like to say that we don't know more than anybody and we don't teach anybody. I think what we do is that we invite people to reflect on themselves and sometimes show them some small tools, some small
Hmm.
ideas that they can implement easily, but especially to reflect on themselves and to say, look, we've been through that. Many people have been through that, and this is how people overcame that. This is how you can overcome that. And
Hmm.
there's this tool, there's that tool, there's this practice, there's this system, there's this other thing. And all of these things sum together, it can take you to a completely different life within a few years.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I always say the first step is never action, is always awareness. Only with awareness
Yes.
then you can take
Yes.
assertive action. That's very important, and
Yes.
you cannot have that awareness if you don't have space for reflection, if you don't have space to slow down and really look from an outside perspective what's really going on. Even
Yeah.
during your days, just like you said, sometimes dentistry can be so full of chaotic
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
If you are not able to somehow take a step back from that, then it's
Yeah.
very difficult for you to see other opportunities, for you to have even curiosity, to do a little
Yeah.
bit different from what you are doing. We were talking about that with Alok on the other episode, that curiosity is such an important skill for you to always have. And sometimes dentists, due to the fact that they have these chaotic days filled with drama, they forget it. The
Yeah.
curiosity, it's something that they know it exists, but they don't practice
Yeah.
it anymore, and then it takes out the fun of it. But
Yeah.
anyway, the main thing today here that we wanted to say is that you can also have fun outside the clinical work, and you can also continue to be in dentistry and still be a dentist, even if it's doing something else. You continue
Different. Yeah.
to be a dentist. But dentistry has a lot to offer in different fields now. So just open your mind, and if you have something in you that says maybe I should try something else, give it a try. And we are here to help you if you need
Yeah.
our help.
Great. Okay,
Thank you.
Manuela. Thanks
Thank you, Andre.
again, and see you in the next episode.
See you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone, for listening. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.